Hello everyone, this is the Gaming Cat here, and thank you all for all the questions that you sent me. This went indefinitely better than the South Park collab. So yeah, thanks for all that you sent me. The questions were great. They were really, I really had a lot of fun answering them, so I'm going to present you all with my answers right now.
The first question here comes from a user named Sato. How old are you? I'm 16, currently pushing 17. Sato also asks, what's your general location? I'm currently stationed on the planet of Shiloh. That's all Commander Raynor is letting me reveal, however. This next question comes from a user named Walking Dead Grimus. Where did you get your YouTube name from? I'm a cat person, so I decided to put cat in the name, and I'm an arrogant ass, so I also put cool at the front. The number is just a random one that popped into my head. Zach Palmer asks, how did you get interested in pooping? I first got into YouTube poop when one of my friends showed me a whole bunch of them one day. I loved what I saw and started watching them a lot. I stopped for a little while in 2010 when I started getting into internet reviewers, but I started watching YouTube poop again when I discovered Awful Fawful's videos mid-2012. I've always seen YouTube poop as a highly creative form of comedy, and I wanted to create something just as creative and funny. After Mobros released his tutorial, I asked my parents for Sony Vegas for Christmas. I got it and happily set off to work. This next question comes from Jekyll Hyde. What software do you use for your YouTube poop, and do you plan on replacing it or expanding its abilities? I usually use Sony Vegas Movie Studio HD Platinum 11, and have been using it for over a year now. I am actually planning on expanding on it. Recently, I bought Adobe Photoshop and Premiere Elements 11. While I'm not going to get rid of Vegas entirely, since it will be still my main editing program, Photoshop and Premiere will be a big help in a major project I have planned. But more on that later. This next question comes from Bloodstone Ore. How do you download videos? I normally don't download videos, usually preferring to record computer footage with a program Mobros talked about in his tutorial called a tube catcher. It also comes with a download function in case I need the whole video. This one comes from Mr. Trollinator. How long does it take you to make your YTPs? On average, 3 weeks to a month and a half. This comes from Houston Hustler 98. Are you still making the South Park collab? Nah, no one really seemed to be interested in it. Thanks to XX Miletta XX for participating anyway, though. This one comes to us once again from Sato. What's your history with StarCraft?
A very good question.
I remember first watching my dad play StarCraft when I was 6 or 7. The game looked neat to me, so I tried it for myself and loved it. I had first used the campaign as a means of learning about the game, but as I went on, I fell in love with the characters, was intrigued by the story, and since then it's become one of my favorite plots in video games. A few particular characters I enjoy are Jim Raynor, Sarah Kerrigan, Zeratul, Arcturus Mengsk, and Abathur. The race I usually play is Terran, and my favorite units are the Marine, the Marauder, the Thor, and the Viking. Other favorites from other races include the Immortal, the Hydralisk, the Swarm Host, and the Dark Templar. I really love this series. As you can imagine, I was waiting quite a bit for StarCraft 2 to come out, and it did not disappoint one bit. This comes to us from Silver Snow Dragon. Have you ever caught a shiny Pokemon? No, I can't say that I have. But hey, as long as it kicks some Carapace, I'm not gonna complain. This rather creative question comes from Mr. Trollinator. If Ezio from Assassin's Creed, CJ from GTA San Andreas, Cartman, Chuck Norris, Deadpool, and a random hobo came to your house, what would you do? I would show Ezio some ship fics of him with Da Vinci, pay CJ to beat up Cartman, discuss episodes of Friendship is Magic with Chuck, ask Deadpool to hook me up with some babes, and give the hobo a job as an SCV pilot. Scott Renfrew and Zach Palmer both ask, what is your favorite game of all time? In addition, Zach Palmer asks, normal and indie. Well, this is easy. My favorite game of all time is StarCraft 2. This is a game that has everything put into it work incredibly well, and I can't wait for the next and final expansion. As for indie, I'd probably have to go with The Binding of Isaac. This game is incredibly unique, as well as rather disturbing. It's also incredibly fun, with randomized dungeons, creative power-ups, interesting bosses, and interesting metaphor. Once again, this question comes from Mr. Trollinator. Do you have Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, and which one do you prefer? I have an Xbox 360, though I'm planning on eventually getting a PS4. As for which one I prefer, I haven't used a PS3, so I couldn't really make a fair comparison. This question comes from Zero. Do you has Battletoads?
No, I do not has Battletoads. I do not have Battletoads either. I have not even acquired Battletoads. I do, however, have Castle Crashers and River City Ransom.
Trocket20 Gaming asks, what is your favorite TV show? SpongeBob SquarePants, for the great memories it's given me from my childhood and still being great enough for me to enjoy nowadays. The Slasher God and Infinite Merald both ask, what is your experience with MLP? I remember back in 2011 having a really big hatred for the show, despite knowing little about it. I just didn't like the idea of the human race reacting positively to something that, as far as I knew, was insanely girly. Eventually, two of my friends who happened to be bronies pestered me to give the show a try. I then grabbed some soda, watched an episode on YouTube, and prepared myself for awfulness. Surprisingly, what I got instead was a high-quality cartoon with interesting characters and enjoyable plotlines. I've been a brony ever since, having a love for the fandom greatly and always anticipating the next episode. This next question comes from a username Vincent Landit. Do you watch anime? No. From what anime I've seen, the plots are very weird. I've seen some weird cartoons in the past, but these are especially odd. I'm also not a very big fan of the animation. It's just so weird and otherworldly that I can't get into it. So yeah, I don't watch anime. Except Last Airbender. I love Last Airbender. Michael Mitchell asks, what is the best movie you watched? I have many favorite movies, such as Forrest Gump, The Deer Hunter, The Lion King, and Inglourious Basterds. Probably my favorite out of all of them would have to be Pink Floyd's The Wall. I love everything about it, the music, the cinematography, the acting, and the animations. Pokemon and YTP fan asks, what is by far the best Disney movie you watched? If you count Pixar's works as Disney, I'd have to say WALL-E. The animation's great, the characters are interesting, the plot is interesting, and the themes are very well delivered. Also, the song in the credits is by Peter Gabriel, which is a plus. This next question comes from fledgling YouTube pooper Nation of Oranges 696. Thank you, Nation! Why are there way too many Spingebill poops? SpongeBob is a source that many folks in this generation grew up with. We thus understand it better and have an easier time making jokes out of it. There's also a lot of ways that it can be pooped because it's not only a kids show, but it's had so many memorable and odd moments that there's a lot to work with. Is it overused? Maybe. Should people stop making poops of them? Definitely not. As long as people are doing what they love, I see no reason for them to stop doing what they're doing. Besides, there's so many good SpongeBob poops, they're practically worth a dime a dozen. Luigi asks, would you ever consider doing Michael Rosen poops? I would if I got some good ideas. I'm not familiar with Michael Rosen though, so it's not very likely.
The Yoshi Overlord asks, what will the subject be for your next countdown? I already have the next subject in mind. It's gonna be about the worst bosses I've ever faced in video games. It's gonna be a fun one.
This next question comes from Slayer Patriot Productions. Are you going to do a top 10 worst episodes of SpongeBob? Nope. Leave that kind of stuff to people like Blue Danny and Mr. Enter. Mr. Triangle World asks, if you had the right editing skills to do so, would you make a Smash Bros. LOL spin-off? Nah, while I enjoy some machinima, particularly Gmod and Source Filmmaker junk, it's not an art style that interests me. This question comes from a user named The Slasher God. What would you suggest to someone who has Videopad who wants to make YTPs? I know very little about Videopad, and what I do know comes from Stork K. Riley. My first advice would be to just get Vegas or Premiere, preferably Vegas since it's slightly more user-friendly. If you can't afford it, save up. If someone's putting a gun to your head and forcing you to make a YTP with Videopad, you'll be very limited. Even though you can put in tons of audio tracks, you'll only have one video track, meaning you won't be able to do much visual humor. You'll have to go for a very simple style of YTP, such as what Sponge Show 1 does, or what I do. In both cases, though, it'll be even simpler since you won't be able to do visual gags.
The final question comes from Mr. Trollinator. Do you have any advice for people that want to make YTPs? Just make what you want to see. Only take suggestions from people if it feels natural, and create just for the purpose of creating. And if anyone tries to label you as a bad person just because they don't like what you make, just spam this at them.
At least I fucking tried!
Well everyone, thanks for the wonderful questions you sent me. This was a lot of fun to make, and I'm sure you had fun watching this, or at least listening to it. For all of you who are fans of my videos, the next ones are on the way. I'm working on them very hard, and I hope to get them out sometime soon. This is the Gaming Cat, wishing you all the best of luck.